We live in a world where loving yourself unconditionally, and I mean truly loving yourself, makes you a narcissist. Where having standards makes you a man-hater. Saying no to a man who isn't in alignment with what you're looking for in life makes you a misandrist. You should make yourself available to most men because you're not all that. Women are asking for too much, but then when you do settle for the guy who keeps pushing you, you should have known better when it doesn't turn out right. At the risk of sounding like a freaky conspiracy theorist, we live in a very masculinized, narcissistic structure. And a common trait that I've noticed in narcissists is deflection by calling other people narcissists. It's a very loud and controlling energy that relies on other people shrinking themselves to feel grandiose. What we're witnessing playing out in more extreme circumstances is the expression of this wounded masculine energy. A strong and healthy man doesn't need to control anyone to feel good about himself. Every single narrative and expectation that's placed on women is designed to keep you small. It's literally impossible to succeed in this world as a woman because all of the rules are designed to fuck you over. You can keep contorting yourself, your entire being, your personality to try and please someone and fit this idea of who you should be. But even when you do that to perfection, you still won't win. If you express needs, you're a psycho bitch. But if you don't express your needs, that's your problem for not thinking highly enough of yourself. But the very unfunny thing is, it's not benefiting men either. Trying to play this very calculated game in which you're trying to be the perfect good girl is incredibly confusing. When you've got men in New York thinking it's funny to punch women in the face, when we've still got child trafficking, when you don't receive support for speaking up against sexual harassment, including men who have been affected by this too, it's obvious you're not supported. Now, how are we supposed to win and thrive as a human being in this world? Well, I'm going to tell you, there's actually a way to do that. My name is Kirsty and welcome to another episode of Good Girls in Remission. This is where good girls come to seek repentance for the sins they've committed as good girls. In this episode, we're going to be exploring ways that you can step into your own empowerment without having to play into victim mentality, without having to be an angry feminist, and without feeling like the whole world is against you. Instead, our new goal is to become a self-actualized human being who shines her light so bright, is fearless in the face of potential resistance, follows her unique path unapologetically, and empowers all of those around her without draining herself. What I'm witnessing in the world right now is the extreme expressions of wounded masculinity play out on the world scene. And I find that when you have an experience with an actual narcissist, they get louder and louder the more powerless they feel, because they have to use some sort of force to keep everyone locked in place. They have their subject, their victim, and they use those manipulation tactics to keep you in check, to make sure that you're still a pawn in their game. They'll gaslight you, manipulate you, play mind games with you, all while keeping you attached to their breadcrumbs. It's really important to know that these people know exactly what they're doing. Even if they're not aware that they are exhibiting traits of narcissism, they are always aware of what they're doing, and this applies to greater systems in which we live in. But you'll also know that there is a way to not only recover from narcissism, but actually remove yourself from it. It can be a little bit scary in situations, especially like the lockdowns, when you see how many people became complicit in all of these rules and expectations that were placed on us. And then, of course, you always have that group of resistance with the protesting. And it's a really interesting dynamic to play out because I'm watching it thinking, who's going to win? What's the best way to overcome this power structure that is obviously trying to control everyone and everything? It's done under the guise of it's all in your best interest, but if something's in your best interest, why is it making you feel so shitty? And I also thought to myself, and I'm not meaning to be negative, but what's it to them if a section of the population died out? And then I realized if you want to make money, if you want to have a strong sense of power, you need numbers. Obviously, the more customers you have, the more money you make. The more people born into extreme poverty who don't have a way out, the more workers you have. Oh, that's why none of it felt really good. It's because it wasn't really for our own best interest. It was for theirs. And I'm not trying to say this to scare anyone. I mean to put it into perspective. The systems that we're worshiping and putting on a pedestal aren't helping us turn up our own inner light. Instead, they encourage us to turn the blind eye when someone else is suffering because we're secretly benefiting from it too. All right, I hate talking about that stuff in detail because I do find it very negative. Now, how do we really tap into our light and thrive as a human being in this world? How can I make sure that women especially are given the tools to thrive in this world? These are some of the changes that I made internally to shift my focus so that I stepped away from darkness and into the light. My first point is that when you prioritize opulent wealth and you put that on a pedestal and you make that the thing that you chase in life, chances are when you get there, you're going to be disappointed. This is not to say that you shouldn't aspire to have nice things, not in any way, shape, or form. But I mean, when you attach your sense of identity to how much money you can make and what kind of luxury you can live in, this is when you really shoot yourself in the foot. I really believe that just focusing on your material wealth is scarcity mindset. True abundance is expanding beyond that. You can have luxury, but don't make that your ultimate goal because you can have so much more. You can have healthy relationships that nurture the best in you and help each other grow. You can give back to your community and watch pockets of the world change before your eyes. You can experience a level of joy that you've never had before. You can have a connection to divinity in which you've never had before. When I started tapping more into my feminine energy, I relinquished a lot of my attention from external circumstances and started turning my attention within. This helped me to take those masculinized structures off the pedestal. I also stopped feeling broke because I no longer put opulent wealth on the pedestal. Because when I did that, I put it above me. But when you come back into your heart, you realize that you are connected to this entire fabric of the universe. To someone who prioritizes wealth, that sentiment can sound incredibly boring, but I'm trying to tell you that when you really tap into that feeling, it's a level of wealth like no other. And because you're tapped into that energy of wealth, you can now live its expression in its truest form. And yes, a lot of the time that does look like forms of luxury, but the way in which you come about it is different. People who feel stuck in poverty and broke mindset usually have some sort of victim mentality, and rightfully so. Many people are born in structures in which it's really hard and takes a lot of effort to break out of those certain thought forms. And I'm not saying this is going to happen overnight, but many times it takes just a simple mindset shift in order to shift the momentum in the direction in which you want to go. If you place opulent, extravagant wealth up on a pedestal up here, and all you know that you can achieve is here, you will keep spending at that level. So you're over here, right? Instead of buying a pair of shoes that cost thousands of dollars, you're maybe spending $150 to $200 on a pair of shoes. And that's a lot of money for you. Now, in order to feel like you're buying into wealth, you end up overspending on that more low to mid price range because that's how you achieve the feeling of what you're going for. But a person who wants to achieve real wealth knows they actually need to exit that system because that's keeping you broke. The more you prioritize extreme wealth and the more you try to buy into it, even at a lower level, the more stuck you stay where you are. It takes a real mindset shift to get you in this direction over here in which you're thinking, I actually need to make some sacrifices to go where I want to go. I'm going to have to stop spending my money on these things and temporarily devoid myself of having these things in my life so that I can shift my energy to become truly wealthy and abundant. The money that you were previously spending on this low to mid items, you're now saving and investing into your future. Your consciousness is expanding now because you're thinking of ways that you can invest in yourself and in your future. What you were doing previously was draining you and keeping you stuck in those same cycles. And that's that narcissistic system that actually benefits from you contributing to the economy in that way. Come back home into your heart and really tap into the essence of wealth and abundance. Now you have a different mindset. I'm looking at ways that I can invest my money. I'm looking at new business ventures. I'm looking at ways that I can create businesses that actually give back to my community. I'm looking at ways that I can empower the people around me. I had someone leave a comment on my page asking me, how do I feel capitalizing off the voices of young women? And to be honest, I feel better than ever. No one was coming up to me when I was working full-time as a copywriter in media, asking me how I felt about creating copy for a cereal company that was full of sugar. No, that's when I was more respected because you have an official proper job now. But I wasn't contributing anything to the world. I wasn't empowering women. I wasn't using my voice. I was just doing my job. When I had my own mindset shift, I thought, no, I want to create a business that actually empowers women to become the best version of themselves. I don't want to write copy for these businesses anymore. I'm over it. I've never felt more tapped into my purpose and potential than ever before, now that I took the leap to return to my heart and follow my calling. Something that I've come to realize is that if you're in a situation in which you're mistreated, especially in a workplace, a lot of the times reporting it does nothing. Human resources, HR, is not designed to have your back. It's designed to have the company's back. It's designed to protect the company image. And if you rock the boat by calling out a workplace bully or sexual harassment, that poses as a threat. And if you're an employee that doesn't really mean anything to them and you're easily replaceable, you're going to get the flick. And that's a very narcissistic trait, being unable to take accountability for your own shortcomings, but pretending like you're a company who has your employees' best interests in heart. I'm not saying all companies are like this, because I know there are a lot more people creating their businesses from a place of integrity, but this is an experience that I've had in the more bigger corporations. The way that I found a source of empowerment through this was actually recognize that my source of power came from prevention and my own standards. Having a big, angry, emotional reaction usually gets you nowhere. No one wants to listen. This is why angry feminists get a bad rap. It's because you're not coming from the right place. The way that more women can step into their own power is by holding themselves to a certain standard and being shameless about who gets hurt in the process. If I'm now in the presence of someone who deliberately mistreats people and can't take accountability, I dip. I recognize that if I was to kick up a stink and have a big angry reaction and report it, that's actually taking the more masculine route. I dip into my dark feminine energy when I communicate with my absence. I disengage. Previously, I used to take that as a reflection of my own value and my own worth, as in, I'm not worthy enough for you to step up and treat me right, to have me in your life. Instead, I now remove my self-worth from someone else's treatment and I decide what's meant for me. I define my worth. I define my value, and I choose who and what I allow into my life. And the reason I do this as well is because saying no to certain men doesn't actually work anymore. Even telling them you have a boyfriend doesn't work anymore. The level of desperate men out there who will attack women for not choosing them is getting funny, but also borderline dangerous. If I felt unsafe to walk in the streets of my neighborhood, I would seriously consider moving neighborhoods. That's my divine right to walk on the streets and feel safe. I don't want to be in situations in which my nervous system is always dysregulated and I always feel on edge because I can't predict the kind of environment that I'm in. And same goes for men who are very persistent and can't take no for an answer. I consider them dangerous, so I block and disengage entirely. I used to take that as validation of how attractive I was, but when I started to realize how many men are actually just incredibly desperate, that's when it became easier to just block and disengage. And it gets easier to find good, respectable men when you block the losers. The more I turn my attention away from what I don't want and focus on the things that I do want, the more I'm receptive to allowing them in. There are, of course, times and places in which we need to rise up against injustice, but I've learned from my own personal experience that if I spend too much time trying to call people out and hold them accountable for what they've done, especially for people who aren't sorry about it, the more I drain my life force and my energy, because the more I feel like a victim in this world. It's because I'm waiting for the outside world to change for me. I'm waiting for all men to be good in order to feel good about myself. I now lean into my feminine energy to create the life that I want and is a true reflection of me, but I had to change me first to change my outside circumstances. I'm now so good at repelling men that I don't want. I'm also incredibly good at spotting red flags and just immediately disengaging. My energy now says, honey, I ain't the one. My only caveat to that is when I say disengage, I mean disengaged. Don't make fun of, don't shame any man for hitting you up and being rejected by you, because that can actually escalate the situation to become dangerous. That's also a feminine energy principle of doing too much. It's not your job to shame someone else who can't meet your standards, just as it's not a man's job to shame you for his inability to meet your standards. Don't risk revving someone else up, because if you feel that energy inside of you, you're still acting on your own woundedness and darkness. A true sense of global community will come back when we can all learn to love ourselves, fill our own voids, instead of looking to each other to say, I need you to change to fulfill me in this way. Once we all learn how to love ourselves, we then have the skills and the ability to love each other, because no longer are we going to be holding each other to a superficial standard of what perfection looks like. We'll have more grace when other people mess up. We won't feel the need to exploit each other to get our needs met. All manipulation is the belief that you can't have what you want by asking for it, that you're inherently not enough. And that's what a lot of greed is based on. Not enough. Scarcity mindset. Why do you think a lot of rich people get caught for embezzlement, tax evasion? That's all scarcity mindset, scammer mentality. True wealth is tapping into your own divinity and turning up your inner light and following your calling. Learning how to love yourself, fulfill your own voids and your own needs, and bringing that sense of inner love to the table in which you can now share and empower with your community. You can now be a teacher in which you can say to other men and women, it's okay, you're safe, you're loved, you're valuable, you're worthy. You are allowed to love yourself now. You'll be a channel in which you can help give people back to themselves. Kind of playing into that, my next point will be stay private. Don't buy into the need to display every single little thing that you do in your life. If you want to make moves in life, do it silently. And don't post that you're doing it in silence. Just do it in silence. I also find that these are the people who can't take accountability for their side. They usually play victim. They may have been victims in the circumstance in which they were affected by, but they're not seeing it from a higher perspective in the way they got themselves into the situation in the first place. One of the best feelings is actually achieving your goals and not feeling the need to announce it to the whole world. Celebrate your wins with yourself and your inner circle. And if that's a community of people that you're empowering as well, even in the online space, sharing your wins is a great thing. But what I mean is, if it's coming from a place of look at me now, y'all doubted me, but here I am succeeding in life. And it's like a shadow image of a white BMW in the background. That's probably secondhand. A true sharing of success is one that actually includes your community and the people that helped you get there. It's more of a statement of thanks rather than fuck you. There's also something so magnetizing and alluring about people who just embody their own power. That's also a powerful trait of the dark feminine energy. When you embody that kind of radiance, that allure, when you embody that kind of self-assuredness, you radiate more than the person who brags about their achievement and shits on other people for not being more like them. Like I say, narcissism is loud, self-empowerment is quiet. To kind of surmise this whole episode, my advice would be detach yourself from the narcissistic systems that are designed to keep you broke and broken. Switch your focus away from ways in which you can buy into the feeling of luxury and instead create it from within. Figure out ways that you can add value to people's lives, foster a sense of community, and give people back to themselves. That's what the world is calling for us right now. We're going to be seeing more narcissistic structures completely crumble and fall to bits. They might get a little bit louder before that happens, especially if we look at what's happening over in Gaza. It's getting louder and louder. That's because these systems are so fragile and so built on ego and power and control and dominance. They're not protecting their people. They're hurting them. And the other thing we talked about was completely disengaging from the things that we don't want to see more of. That's not the same as turning a blind eye to someone's suffering and misfortune. That's actually disengaging from the structure behind it that requires you to turn a blind eye. Anyone or anything or any company that relies on exploitation and suppression and control of any kind is going to crumble. You're going to go down with it if you don't honor yourself and your own divinity. I now line up with God or the universe's plan, and I want to become a warrior of the light, so to speak, not a fighter of darkness. Speak up for what you want to see more of and remove yourself as best as you can from situations that compromise you. Protect yourself and protect your standards. That's really going to help turn up your inner light. You'll feel self-abandonment and self-betrayal if you keep putting yourself in situations that ask you to betray yourself. Honor and protect yourself, and you'll feel a lot more self-love. The way that we'll see a greater shift in this world is if we all turn towards our inner light and trust that we'll all be supported in the process. I see that there's a lot of fear surrounding that. I won't be supported. I'll be homeless. I'll become broke if I follow my true calling. There might be a temporary period in which things get a little bit rocky because change usually is, but that shouldn't persuade you from following your truth and your real calling. Not your superficial calling of chasing opulent wealth like we spoke about, but your truest calling. And the universe will never ever let you down as you follow its path. You gotta ask yourself, what if the world wants to see this from me? Rather than what if I'll become broke in the process and unsupported, what if this is exactly what the world is asking for from me and I'll be rewarded extravagantly for having provided this value in this service? It's like this automatic assumption that if someone's charging money for something, that they're greedy and selfish. And yet they'll still go out and pay for the services of companies that exploit their workers. Like I said, you can't win when you live for approval, so start living for your own. You will only be more than loved and supported as you choose to follow your divine purpose on this planet. You deserve to be loved, you deserve to be supported, you deserve to be valued, and you deserve excessive abundance like you've never experienced it before. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I hope this has inspired you to come back into your heart and follow your truest callings. If you'd like to know a little bit more or receive access to some resources, click the link for my website in the description below. With excessive and extravagant love, Kirsty.